Hey friends, it's Anna. I hope the start of fall is treating you well. We have a very autumnal October bullet journal set up today, so grab your pumpkin spice or fall drink of choice and let's get journaling. Before we get into my October spreads, I'm actually going to start off with 2 quarterly pages since we are entering the 4th and final quarter of the year. It's hard to believe that we're already in the last few months of 2023. This left page will be my quarter 4 goals check-in, and on the right page I'll have my rolling quarterly task list. I'm starting off the page with this serif title. I'm drawing the outline with the fine tip side of my Tombow dual brush pen and then filling it in with the brush tip side. It's kind of surprising to me that more bullet journalers don't use quarterly spreads because I feel like there are definitely goals and projects that are too big for just 1 month, but maybe too small to plan for on an annual basis. So a quarterly time frame is that perfect in between. Also, I think when it comes to annual goals, it's really helpful to have quarterly check-ins, and that's what this quarter 4 goals page is. If you saw my 2023 bullet journal setup, you know I set some annual goals at the beginning of the year in 4 life domains: faith, health, personal, and professional. So I created this box and titled it Goals with my alphabet stamp set, and I'm writing out each of those 4 categories in the box. This is space for where I can write any small steps I want to take towards achieving these goals this quarter, or what my priorities are in each domain, or whatever I want to write regarding those annual goals. This is my first year doing quarterly spreads in my bullet journal, and I think it has made a difference on how track I am with annual goals. It's October and I'm still at least actively working on or making progress on goals I set in January, which is a lot better than what normally happens, which is I make New Year's goals, but by March most of them are forgotten. So I think my quarterly pages have been helpful for regularly reminding me of annual goals and encouraging me to continue taking action on them. As you can see, I decided to go for a pumpkin theme this month, a classic for October or any autumn spreads. I specifically wanted it to feel like a pumpkin patch, so I'm adding lots of vines weaving through the pumpkins, and I'll do some other pumpkin patch-esque drawings throughout the other spreads. I actually didn't love how busy the vines were in this first drawing here, so I'm going to paste some scrap dotted paper over part of it. I got this from some pages I had cut out of the back of the journal. This right page is my rolling quarterly task list, and I'm using my Tombow calligraphy brush pen to write the title up top. This page is for tasks that aren't necessarily things connected to annual goals, but anything I want to get done this quarter in general. So I'm creating a box with 2 columns, which I'll label up top. One is for the task and one is for due date if I need it. This spread is great for tasks that I know I want to get done relatively soon, but I don't want to commit to assigning them to a specific month. So for example, if I know there's a task I want to get done in the next few months before the end of the year, but at this point I know that October wouldn't be a good time to do it, I would write that here and be reminded of it when I'm doing my November and December setups. I'm adding some more pumpkins at the bottom of the page. I'm using a really simple art style for these. I like to keep my spreads relatively quick and easy to set up. I start by drawing the middle of the pumpkin with a tall, thin oval and then add onto the sides depending on how many grooves I want the pumpkin to have. Then I'll add the stem coming up the middle, and to give some depth to the bigger pumpkins, I'll also add some grooves up top coming from behind the stem, as if you can see the top area of the backside of the pumpkin. I'm using a very basic leaf shape with some spiky edges for the vines. After these first spreads, I actually was not sure how I felt about these leaves. When I sketched everything first in pencil, I just sketched the leaves with a smooth outline, and I thought that actually looked better, so you'll see me switch to that for the rest of the setup in future pages. I had so much fun doing all of these pumpkin drawings. I was sipping on a pumpkin coffee and had Harry Potter on in the background while doing this, so creating these spreads really provided a cozy autumnal afternoon. The last step for the drawing is outlining the pumpkins again to make them stand out a bit more against the vines, and then I'm also going to add some detail lines, again just to add that depth and level up the drawings just a bit. I'm going to use a few different Tombow brush pens to add the color. I tested out a few different color palettes for this setup and I'm really happy with the one I chose. If you want to know the specific colors, I'll show them on the screen and then they'll also all be listed in the description box below, along with all the other products I'm using. Of course, I'm doing some of the pumpkins in this basic orange, the color I think we all associate most with pumpkins. After just filling in the shape, you'll also see me go over all those detail lines with the brush tip as well to reinforce that depth. And then to add a little variety, I'm also doing some of the pumpkins in this warm yellow, and then I'll also do the last few in a beige color, keeping all the pumpkins in a warm tone. I'm using a slightly darker beige or brown color to do the stems on the pumpkins, and for the leaves I was going to use my favorite green color, but then I thought it might look really fun to do a bit of contrast by adding a cooler toned color, so I chose this light blue or purple hue. I know this isn't really realistic to have leaves in this shade, but this color combo feels so Halloweenish to me, and I thought it made the drawings pop a little bit more, so I really like how these colors turned out. And those are my 4th quarter pages. Now let's get into my October spreads for this setup, beginning with my calendar page, which I also used as sort of my cover page for the month. I'm starting with the title up top, and I thought it would be fun to use a pumpkin as the O in October. And then I'll write the rest of the title with my large Tombow brush pen. This is black N15. I still at this point am not sure how I feel about this pumpkin O. I kind of like it, but I also think that it could have been better to do a regular calligraphy O and then put a pumpkin sitting at the base and side of it. So if you're planning on recreating this and also don't know how you feel about this pumpkin O, then you could maybe try that. Below the title, I'm drawing my calendar. I give myself 5x5 squares for each day, and I'm using a standard A5 sized notebook. I like having this bigger calendar because it's just enough room to write any events or appointments or travel I have planned, and then of course I can do more detailed planning in my weekly spreads. I stamp the days of the week up top, and then I'll add the dates at the very end. I was waiting until the rest of the spread was colored in so I could decide what color I wanted to write in the dates. For the art in this spread, I'm creating this little wooden wheelbarrow that will have some pumpkins in and around it. Like I said, I wanted to make it feel like a pumpkin patch. I'm doing 3 pumpkins inside the wheelbarrow. They'll kind of bleed into the bottom corner of the calendar a little bit. I did start using a thicker fine liner for the pumpkins so I wouldn't have to go over them as much with 0.5 in the Sakura Micron, and then I used 0.3 for the rest of the drawings. For all the pumpkins throughout the setup, I tried to do a variety of shapes and sizes to make it more visually interesting. On the next page, you'll see me do some more uniquely shaped pumpkins. Once you get the general strategy for drawing the pumpkins, it becomes really easy to add lots of variety to their form, and I started having a lot of fun drawing slight variations of the same thing. It was very much a relaxing setup to create. Now I'm going in and adding the vines of leaves and adding the little detail lines to finish up the corner drawing. Like I hinted at earlier, I switched to just doing a basic leaf shape with smooth edges instead of the jagged ones. Honestly, looking back at the journal now, I think both leaves look fine, but in that moment I was just convinced that the jagged edges were awful. And then I didn't film this part, but I also drew some vining leaves in the top corners to help balance out the page. Balancing the page was actually why I first thought of doing the pumpkin O, because I felt like with the bigger drawing in the bottom right, the top left was going to need something, but with the shape of the calendar on the page, I didn't know what I could add there, so I incorporated the drawing and color into the title instead of trying to add it around the word October. Now I'm going in with the color. At this point, the spread basically becomes a mini coloring book page, and again, it was just super relaxing to finish off each page with coloring in the drawings. To complete the spread, I'll add the dates in the top right corner of each day in the calendar. First though, I'm using the blue color to add a backdrop for the numbers so the calendar has a splash of color. Like I mentioned, I did this last after the rest of the spread was colored in so I could determine which color I wanted to use here. And that's the finished calendar setup. Next up is a spread I'm titling Notes for October. This is a spread I came up with to help with planning my month besides just the events on my calendar, and it also gives me a place to reflect on the month as well. I'm writing the title up top with my smaller calligraphy pen, and I'm drawing 3 boxes below. If you've been following along with me, you know what these are because I've been using this spread for most of 2023 now actually. And I've stuck with it because I really have been finding it helpful to get me organized for the month ahead. The top left box is for intentions, and I'll add the title for each box with my alphabet stamp set. My intentions aren't specific goals or tasks, but more like general focuses or priorities that can help me frame my month. For example, for October, I know one of the intentions I'm planning on writing is to prioritize rest and quality time with my husband on weekends. I've been doing a lot of work on weekends recently, both as a dietitian and working on YouTube videos, and I think I'm burning myself out a little bit, so I wanted to prioritize taking at least one day off to rest and getting some of that time back to spend with my husband and our family and friends. Below the box for intentions is one for tasks, so the specific things I want to check off my to-do list in October. Oftentimes I'll add little sections in the box for YouTube and chores, or sometimes work if I have any project-based tasks that month. And I'll always check my rolling quarterly spread first to see if there are any tasks there that I want to assign to this month. The box on the right page is for reflections, so I'll fill that out at the end of the month. I think actually taking the time to reflect on your goals and how you spent your time, and then using those reflections to either make changes or reinforce habits is really helpful. So I've been trying to do more of that by incorporating this into my monthly spreads. For the art on these pages, I'm adding some more pumpkins. I drew 3 in a line on the bottom of the right page. The 2 on the outside are those awkward looking pumpkins you see sometimes that are almost shaped like a pear, but I thought this had a good look of imperfect symmetry. I drew a vine connecting the 3 pumpkins and then extended that vine up through the left page in that gap between the boxes. And then I finished off the art with 2 more pumpkins in the top left and some more vining leaves with a mini pumpkin in the top right. Whenever I was drawing the vines, I just let my hand do what felt natural, adding random twists and curves. And I also love the little curls coming off the main vine as well. I think those add a lot. These drawings are honestly very simple, so the design should be friendly to any beginner artists out there. The last step will be adding some color, and that will finish up this Notes for October spread. Both pretty to look at and very useful, I think. Finally, I'm going to add an orange drop shadow to the title to make it stand out a bit more, and that's the finished spread. Moving on to our next pages, which will be my habit tracker on the left and mood tracker on the right. Starting with my habit tracker, I'm using that same serif style font that I use for my quarter 4 page. I'm doing the outline first and then I'll fill it in with my brush tip side. This and my basic calligraphy script are definitely my favorite go-to fonts. I think it adds a sense of cohesion if you stick with one or two main fonts within a setup, and I think it especially looks good if you have two that contrast each other like a serif and cursive font do. Beneath the title, I'm drawing the outline of 5 mini calendars, each one for one of the 5 habits I'm going to track in October. Again, you'll be familiar with this format if you've been following along with me. It's served me really well so far this year. After completing the calendars, I'll label the days of the week up top, and then I'll write the name of each habit below the calendar in a simple cursive font. For each day that I complete that habit, I'll put a little X for that corresponding day in the calendar. I usually track pretty much the same habits each month. These are things that I'm continually working on and want to be reminded of, like drinking enough water, doing my devotional, etc. The last step for my habit tracker is adding how often I'd like to complete each habit to the side of each calendar. Most of these aren't actually things I need to be doing every single day of the week, so I like to write down my specific goal, and that way I can compare the number of X's to my goal instead of thinking I failed because not every day has an X in it. With that little bit of space in the bottom right corner, I'm drawing a wooden bucket or barrel that will have some small pumpkins in it and a larger pumpkin behind it. I'm imagining this being the bucket they give you at the pumpkin patch so you can walk around and collect all the little pumpkins you'll go home with. I hope you guys are enjoying this pumpkin theme as much as I am. If you're liking this video, it would mean so much to me if you could give me a thumbs up. Also, please let me know in the comments any thoughts you have about these spreads. Let me know if you like the pumpkin O on the calendar page or not, if you're planning on recreating any of these spreads, or what theme you use for October, because I would love to know. I lost the footage of me starting to color in this drawing, but now I'm adding the final touches with some color. I'm using that darker beige color for the barrel that I also use for the stems, and then I thought it would look good to also add some color to the rest of the spread. So you'll see me add a drop shadow to the title and then highlight the days of the week on top of each mini calendar. On the right page will be my mood tracker. I'll start by writing the title up top with my calligraphy font. My mood tracker setup is actually really simple. For the second half of 2023, I've been using the 1 line a day method, which is just what it sounds like. Instead of trying to pick just one mood that represents the whole day, I have a full line across the page to write a quick description of that day. So I'm just using a single line to create 2 columns here, and I'm writing the dates for the month on the left. On the right side is where I'll write my short descriptions. I love that I have the space to write multiple moods for a day if I want, or I can write context for why I felt a certain way. I think this system allows for a pretty accurate picture of my emotions. I used to do the 1 color a day system, and what I do miss from that was being able to see patterns or get an overall picture of my mood with a brief glance. So in order to get the best of both worlds, I also added a color key at the bottom with common moods, and at the end of the month, I'll go through my daily descriptions and use those colors to highlight their respective moods. So I get that quick glance if I want, but I can also read the full line if I want more details. Since there's not a lot of space, the art on this page is super simple. I continued the vine sprouting from the pumpkin on the left page and did some vining leaves up and down. I'll go back to that yellow to add some color to the days and title, and those are my tracker spreads for the month. Last up for this October setup will be my first weekly spread. It takes up 4 pages in my journal because I do like to have a full half page for each day. I'm starting with the title up top. We are now in week 39 of 2023, if you can believe it. I'm drawing some lines to divide each page in half. Each of these columns will be my planning area for one day. On this right column of the last page, I'm adding the titled tasks because this is where I put my rolling weekly task list. This is for things that I know I want to get done this week, but don't have a specific day they need to be done on. For example, I know it's time to descale my espresso machine, so I'm planning on listing that in my rolling weekly, and that will remind me to get it done on whichever day I have time this week. I'm using my alphabet stamp set to stamp the days of the week and dates. You'll see this when I'm done setting up the spread, but I actually fold the middle page in half so my rolling weekly column is always visible no matter what day of the week I'm looking at. So I can see it throughout the entire week and see my progress on all the tasks I'm needing to get done. That will make more sense at the end when I fold the page. I try to fill out my rolling weekly at the very beginning of the week, and then of course I can add to it or alter it throughout the week if I need to. And when I'm doing my planning on this weekly basis, I'll also flip back to my monthly calendar and write any events I have in the daily columns. And then I'll also reference my notes for October page to see if I want to write any monthly to-dos in the rolling weekly column. Since that page on the right will be folded in half, I also like to match up the art on these front two pages with the art on the back two pages, so the drawings blend together however I have the pages folded. Again, that will make more sense when I show you the final spread. I'm keeping the drawings pretty simple, mainly these vining leaves with some pumpkins in the corners. I also thought it'd be fun if I added a little wooden sign in this bottom right corner that says pumpkin patch, since that was my inspiration for the whole theme. I think I'll keep with this general art layout for all my weeklies for October, but maybe change up what the wooden sign says each week. Maybe next week I can have it say spooky season or like pumpkin spice everything nice. You know, all those classic cheesy sayings they embroider on fall pillows. I forgot to record myself coloring this page in, but the last step in this spread is adding some color to the drawings and the titles. I know I said it before, but I'm just really happy with how the colors look together in this theme. I think the orange with the light purple gives off such a Halloween vibe, which is perfect for October. If you were using this design for a different fall month and didn't want it to be so Halloweenish, I also did a few of these practice drawings with a green for the leaves, and it looked really good too, just in a more natural way. For the final touch, I'm using the yellow to highlight the titles and underlines for each day, and that will complete our October bullet journal setup. And you can see here what I meant with folding the middle page of the weekly. So let's do a final flip through of the completed setup. This was a really fun one for me to create. I hope you guys also enjoyed it and all the autumn vibes. I appreciate you watching and sticking to the end so much. I'd love to have you subscribe if you want to stick around for more bullet journal or book content. I hope you all have an amazing October, and I'll see you in my next video.